Hi, and a warm welcome to the sixth edition of Women's Empowerment Hour, brought to you by learmedia.tv. My name is Siobhán Gannon. I'm founder of Embodied Soulful Living, Yoni Awakening Journey, and most recently Sexual Wellness Warriors. I'm an advocate for women's health and sexual wellness. I'm also a mentor, life coach, and an intuitive. And today, my lovely guest is Debra Kilby. And Debra is a channel, healer, spirit, baby medium, and author of a fabulous new book called Rosa's Choice, Healing the Wounds of the Mother, a journey into the world of the spirit baby and how we can build a new earth together. So Debra is able to access the realms of life before life and supports women who have experienced baby loss or who are struggling to conceive to meet their babies in spirit and here in person. So she guides women to understand themselves and their own soul's journey through the challenges that life events and their soul's journey to motherhood brings up in order for them to open up, to remember who they are, their power, their purpose, and their gifts. And I'm delighted to have you here, Debra. So the warmest welcome.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
I always love chatting to you. So we work in similar circles. So it's always great to have a bit of a natter about things and what's coming up. And the Wounds of the Mother is massive. And I've ordered your book. It's on the way, you told me. So I can't wait to get into it. So can you just tell, for whoever's watching as well, just a little bit about your background, how you started on the journey to holistic health, and how you got to where you are right now.
Yes. So, well, I grew up in Jersey, so I grew up by the beach and the sea. So I've got a very, much a great affinity with water. Now I live in London with my two boys who are 13 and 8, and my husband. So how did I start this journey? It was all through the journey to motherhood. And before that, I was a journalist, and then I worked as a media officer for a humanitarian organization. So I had this amazing time of just traveling around the world and really seeing the world and seeing all of the amazing beauty and people and love and all the not so balanced things in the world as well, traveling around there. So I was a media officer. So I think I've always been sharing people's messages, whether that's, a politician, whether that's a woman in Rwanda who survived, the terrible happenings over there. So I've always been sharing messages. So what I do now as a channel, I just feel like that was my training ground, if you like, because now I'm sharing messages, but just from beings that you can't physically see right now anyway. So it was my journey to motherhood which really started me on this. I think I was always a bit like that as a child, but I always used to love palm reading in my teens, and I had this huge experience when I went traveling for the first time when I was 18, and I was with my girlfriends, and we were going to camp somewhere in Morocco, and something just stopped me from moving forwards. It's like, don't stop, don't go there. But there was nowhere else to go, and we couldn't afford the big fancy hotel up the road at the time because we were traveling. And we went down there, and then and I just really felt it was an angelic presence, because that night we were held up by knife point by this guy in our town. Yeah,
I haven't heard this story before.
Yeah. So this is like this huge thing, and I've just mentioned that because these things happen, but it was looking back on it now, it was that energy of there was someone helping me, protecting me, something protecting me and saying, don't do that. But we went and did it anyway. But there was such an amazing level of support. And I heard this word acceptance, just accept. We were in this tent, and we all kind of jumped back in the tent and started writing letters to our mums, like apologizing for getting ourselves into trouble, getting ourselves, killed. And it was this acceptance. And I just felt this amazing energy around us. And we started talking to this guy, and he stayed there till sunrise. But we were talking in kind of, pidgin French and English and sign language, and he just went away. And so looking back, I think, wow, we really have this beautiful protection around us. There really are, we are looked after. And they're always signs. So that was when I was 18. And then you kind of, just move on with life, and you have a good time, and you build your career and all of that stuff. And it was my journey to motherhood. So I was, we had Max, who's now 13. And then I went on to have 3 miscarriages after that. And it didn't open me up. It completely shut me down. I was like, no, it happens. I didn't go into how I was feeling. I didn't realize that I wasn't very good at showing my emotions, being vulnerable. It's like, oh, life is, so I was functioning, life was great, but it wasn't great, but I didn't really realize that. Then I got pregnant with Rosa, who the book is written with, and I heard her say, "Mummy, I'm sick." And actually Max had spoken to me in the womb as well. He's like, "Hi Mum, my name's Jack," and he was all very cheery. We didn't call him Jack, obviously, but but this voice, and I could so Rosa was saying, "Mummy, I'm sick," so she was preparing me for something. And I just thought, oh, it's because of the miscarriages, it's because I'm in fear. But it turns out that she had genetic complications. It wasn't clear whether she was going to survive or not survive, what her quality of life would be. So then I was faced with a choice. The miscarriages, there was no choice. Well, I felt I didn't have a choice, but certainly the babies have a choice, as I know now. But I felt I had to make that choice. And so I chose to release her. And obviously that was my sort of breaking point. But it was also the point where I am the most grateful for that experience, because it's from that moment that when you feel like you're not going to get off the floor, and what kind of person am I? I'm so bad. Why is life doing this to me? And I sat in the garden. I just walked up the street and seen someone who was pregnant, and I have that second of, oh, that's nice. And then bang, what about me? And I was sitting in my garden thinking, why I'm not this bitter, sad, this person who's just so deeply unhappy and feel like the world's against her. And that's not me. And then there was this, there was a dragonfly or something. I think it was a dragonfly, or butterfly, something just caught my attention. And I thought, who is this me? Who is this me that's not bitter and angry and upset and all of those things? And it was like that moment of, oh, who is this me? And then I started going on this mission to find, or who is the me that knows she is not all of these big emotions, that knows she's joyful and all of that stuff. So that was that moment. And then I went on this big journey.
Yeah, it's amazing. And just to bring it back there, even saying like, who are we without being, and I had posted this recently, without being mother, sister, daughter. It's like going back to that innocence, or they call it erotic innocence of, just energy, like childhood and curiosity, all of that stuff. And you can see with the wounds of the mother that so much of that comes from the inner child as well. So it's all, that's how I see it, that it's all combined. The inner child is the wounded mother. That's the way I see it as well. But just to bring you back there, when you said, you you had experienced 3 miscarriages, and I know so many women through miscarriages, and it's kind of, oh, look, it happens to everybody, and they don't actually digest or that process or integrate it back in. And it does, from my experience of work as well, it does often affect the next child that you're going to conceive, which is around the work you do, like clearing the space forward so that you can heal that before you conceive again, isn't it? But when you were saying there about miscarriage and then termination, I remember we had, you did a masterclass in My Only Awakening, and there was something you said around termination or abortion that I thought was amazing. Some line, I don't know, do you remember it? But it wasn't ending.
It wasn't ending, no. So the miscarriage, definitely, because it does happen to an awful lot of women, and there's so many reasons why that happens. And knowing your baby has a choice in that, they might just be popping in. I don't mean that lightly, but they're coming in to test the energy, they're coming in to connect, or they're coming in to wake you up. One of the lines around miscarriages, they're coming in to show that there are other worlds and other possibilities to, because we sometimes, because of the miscarriage, start wondering why and opening up to spirit. So that is also one of their roles. But with the termination, so Rosa, I say release, because when I was asking about the spirit babies and Rosa about termination, they said, that's not in your power to terminate. You terminate nothing. We're energy. You birth us into another realm. We are birthed into another realm where we choose to be. So you can't terminate. So it's release. You're releasing us from the
that was
earth.
a big kind of a light bulb in that way, because if you think of termination as well, and like the finish of something, then often what I found with women who've come to me, and I've been in that situation myself, you know, when I was younger, but to have the actual kind of giving yourself permission or to be received by somebody to actually listen, because abortion or termination, even in this country, is still, and in many places, is still got so many issues around it. So many women haven't had that opportunity to heal, because when you have a miscarriage, everybody rallies around if you allow it, and that support is there if you allow it. But for termination or abortion or release, as you say, that isn't there. Not like it should be. And many women I'd have coming, you know, to me as well over the years, have been really, really, you know, caught up in that. And me myself, like my journey, when you said choice, like I've only known you for a couple of years, but when I was on my journey of healing, say my experiences, I had the same thing come in. It was choice, and so, you know, it's that came in for me, that yeah, it's a choice on the baby's soul on a level. So I had been kind of beating myself up in certain ways around, you know, obviously taking responsibility, because I think taking responsibility is a massive part as well. So education on contraception, education on sex education, which is what I'm doing all of this now, education on your menstrual cycle, all of that stuff. But to actually, for women who are watching this and may have gone through that process, or may find themselves in later going through that process, that there is a bigger picture to this, and it is a co-creation, if that makes sense.
It completely is, and it's such a massive experience. And you're right, there's, you know, the support for women who have miscarriage, if you allow, is there, but it's also, it happens, get on with it. That, you know, oh, you know, as if, you know, there's no honoring of that experience for the woman
Yes.
within it. But with termination, there's none of that. And whether the woman even feels like they can share it. I mean, I didn't tell anybody. I mean, I was working for a Catholic agency as well at the time. I was like, I'm going to lose my job, you know, because I was in so much shame. But the shame was there all along. It wasn't the experience that brought up the shame. It was that created the shame. It was already there. And what termination is such a massive experience, because, you know, it's not a choice. It's not a choice you want to make. It might be a choice you want to make. It might be, but it's whichever way you are, it's still a massive, massive experience.
Yeah.
And to really reassure anyone who's been through that experience. So we might not tell anyone because of the shame. So therefore, we're really holding all of that pain and trauma in. Well, it's your choice. Why? You haven't got a right to feel emotional. You haven't got a right to feel the way you're feeling, because it's your choice. And it's, you know, this isn't the case. It's so much bigger than that. And yes, and essentially it's all about the work you do, Siobhan, because it's women's empowerment. Who has choice over your choice and your body, and what feels right for your body and what feels right for your life and your choice. And what the spirit babies, what Rose was saying about termination, about release, is that you're not terminating them, because that's impossible. That's not our power. They're forever, they're eternal, as are we. You're terminating old patterns and programs and traumas, and it's an experience for the most courageous women who really want to dig deep into those patterns of, have I got a right to have that choice? Who are people going to judge me? You know, really going deep into those old beliefs to move through that, to feel empowered and start owning that experience as beginning to own yourself and the choices you have over your body and your life.
With that, then, that's what empowers other women. So they think, you know, to speak out or to own it. I love this because it's owning your experience. And it took me a long time to own many experiences, but it's so empowering to just own it. And like, choice is the pivotal turn of everything, isn't it? It's about choice. And say even in this country, termination came in a couple of years ago. But I mean, I remember just feeling the healing just from that, from that choice, and the choice being just the choice. Because when you bring in things like, where does it end for women? If you don't have choice over your body and your life in that way, then where does it draw the line for everything else? Do you know what I mean? Boundaries, with partners or men in general or whatever else. Do you know what I mean? Where is the line drawn that you own your own body? You're responsible for your own body and nobody else is. No.
And it's the responsibility as if, the male was not part of that experience. They don't go through the same. They really I'm not saying they don't struggle with it, because a lot do, because there's still that, but there's not the same sense around it. It's always the onus, as with everything, is on the woman, and it's your fault, and it's this. So taking self-responsibility, absolutely. And also to reassure women that the babies, I haven't met a baby who wasn't aware of the choice that was going to be made, because it was also their choice. And that experience, the picture is really massive. But one of the stories I briefly mentioned in the book is this, a woman who had a terminate. It changes everything. It really changes everything about how you're living your life, or has the potential to change everything about how you see yourself and how you live your life. Ultimately, hopefully in the positive. But she was living in a relationship that was abusive, and she chose not to go ahead with the pregnancy. But that baby, she was feeling so distraught by her choice that she then left the relationship. So her baby had helped her out of a really. And I said, if there was a name for baby, what would it be? And she said, Grace. And so through Grace came in to release her from that relationship that she was in, that wasn't serving her in any way. So there's so many gifts in it as well, when we are able to reach that point, when we're ready to kind of allow ourselves that healing and really see that shadow side of us.
And like even in my work and doing work on myself, just looking that say that experience had brought up a load of stuff from the mother wound, so the ancestral line that hadn't been dealt with from the women in my lineage as well. And once I suppose you come to that realization that there is a bigger picture to this, it really does help with the healing process as well, doesn't it? Yeah.
And there's lots around loss and grief and coming from the ancestral line. There's a really unresolved issues of choice and empowerment of the woman, like giving away your power, giving away your choice, but also if they experience loss and weren't able to say anything, or in times gone past it was even less open than it is now for women to talk about their bodies and sex and everything else. And so women who go through that experience, really, you are the opposite of what you're likely telling yourself. You are changing the way that women see themselves once you are able to find resolution and understand your experience on a different level, on a much bigger level, and heal through everything that comes up from it. You really are the impact out in the world is really massive. So and actually I think at the end of Rosa's message on termination, which is also in the book, it's the most courageous, bravest women who are ready to go so deep into themselves, and that is you can feel that energy coming up, and it's then shared with it just moves out, as we know.
It just goes out, and then you often have other women just coming and openly talking without even it being mentioned. It's just it kind of opens the space just by being in the energy of somebody who's taken that responsibility or self-responsibility. And what I find is, when I look at, it's like two girls of my own, or my son as well, but just the moving forward, the change then to be brought into the physical as well. So you've learned as well from a personal thing of the experience and how how to look after yourself. So education as well, and then passing that towards the next generation.
Yeah.
Because so much of that is needed to have a different feel and attitude towards what's going on, because, you know, that's really needed for the generations now of our younger kids going forward, to have a totally different attitude than the way we were brought up with religion and all of these limiting beliefs,
Yes.
you know, around women and all that shaming and stuff and like that. So, I mean, it's massive, isn't it, at the moment? This work is massive and massive going forward. It's really, really needed.
It's really massive. And if you think the womb space, you know, the holy grail, everything, I mean, this is birthing, whether that's new life or ideas or businesses or whatever you are creating is coming from the womb. So if we're clearing, if we're you know, and a lot of our wisdom and our power is hidden under all the shame and the traumas, not just from this lifetime, but from our mothers and down the line, and just the collective psyche of women. So if we're clearing our womb through you know, through a challenging journey to motherhood, or just because, you know, that just because you're feeling, oh, I really feel drawn to really looking at my sacred feminine areas, you're opening up your womb, you're opening up your sacral chakra, you're opening up your own sense of self, your passion, your power. So it's really deep, it's really beautiful.
We create from there, isn't it? So we create from the center, and the color is orange in the chakras, orange, and I think it's the color for the month, as Marcy would say. So orange is it's good to wear orange as well, isn't it, to just nourish that center. So tell us a little bit more about the book. I know it's been a bit of a journey for you to actually get it out there. And I know, I think it was it last year when you did the masterclass, it was supposed to be launched in February, and things happened. So it was only launched last month, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So what about your journey to actually writing the book and getting it out there, getting your message out there, getting Rosa's message out there?
So it was about, so Rosa was born in 2010. And then, you know, this big journey followed, and I started, you know, I joined the Holistic Healing College. I learned soul plan readings. I opened up all my chat, you know, and it's everyone can channel. We channel all the time, but there's stuff underneath it, beliefs, limits, all sorts of stuff that makes us feel like we can't, even though we just do it all the time. Those inspirations that come in, that's channeling, music, art, anything you're creating is sort of this inspiration. And it's quite a few years later, and I'd already started channeling because the soul plan readings I was doing, and I was still at work then, so 2015, and I was going through this redundancy process. My mum had just passed, so it was like this massive grief loss for, okay, how much more? And I went for a drink with two colleagues, and we were sat there, and one of them I'd trusted with and told what the full story. And the other one was quite new, but she was so gorgeous. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to tell her the whole story. And then she said, how do you feel now? And it came out, I feel so grateful. Like, Rose has changed my life. And I was really shocked by that, because I hadn't taken the time to think, well, how do I feel? It's really, we don't often do that. How do I feel right now? How do I feel about that now? How do I feel in this moment now? And I hadn't asked myself that question, and I was really shocked by this. I feel so grateful. It's like the best experience ever, even though it had me on the floor, and it kind of made no sense. So on the tube home, I just got this scrap of paper, and I started writing, I cannot believe I feel grateful for this experience. It kind of blew my mind quite a bit. And then I just knew, excuse me, I just knew it was her choice as well. This information started coming in. It was my choice as well. And you're here to write a book about it. And I was like, and I said, okay, what does it look like? And this is the image that she showed me. It was this image on the tube after a few wines. I was like, oh my gosh, and it's going to change the lives of women and how they perceive their journey to motherhood. So I went running home to my husband. I was like, oh, I'm going to write a book, and it's just going to help. So, you know, just in that, because that's that real divine inspiration that comes in. And again, it took a few months to start. And I started looking for mediums because I knew Rosa wanted to share her own side of the journey. But I started looking for mediums who could channel her side of the journey, because I wasn't in that so much confidence of myself, or even thought it was possible. Or and they kept saying to me, well, my guides are saying she's very high vibration. I can't actually reach her, but we could do it through my guides. And that's not. And I just sat on my couch one day and she went, oh, do you know what? I wonder if I can connect in with her. And she came through with this message, and I was like, oh. So that was the start of it. And the first part one of this, in 3 parts, and part one of the book is the part I thought I was writing. This is the book all about the journey to motherhood, about why babies may not choose to stay, why babies are choosing to wait to come in, the different underlying factors of why we may not be ready to receive their very high vibration. They're not because there's anything wrong with us, the total opposite. They can see the potential of you. They see you as love. They want you to see yourself as love. So they want you to see the potential of yourself that's hidden under all these traumas and shame and everything else, ancestral, this lifetime. They want you to see that. So it's like your journey to motherhood is part of your soul journey, just really lifting you into more of who you are. And I can't remember how did I go off on that tangent?
How you started the book.
How that started, yeah.
So you're on about like 3 parts, but the first part.
The 3 parts. The first part was this, all about that, and termination is massive. Release is massive in terms of really making you feel like you're not worthy, or it's too scary to become pregnant. It's really one of the big kind of things that our bodies. Oh, I don't know if don't want to go through that again. So really, how taking responsibility for your healing around that is really beautiful if you're trying to conceive again. And then these other messages started coming through, and I sat, because sometimes I used to ask her specific questions, questions that were coming up to me. How did you feel at the release? Because I know how I felt, and it wasn't great. And her response was, I've never felt so much joy to be returned to my whole soul. So that's also, anyone whose babies chose not to stay, or it was your choice, that feeling, you are releasing them into their sense of soul. And that was really comforting as well. And then clients' questions. So I'd ask specific questions, and sometimes I asked, what do you want to say? What do you want to share today, Rosa? And then the story of the universe came through. I was like, what? Creation. And she said, this is a book about creation. Of course, when we're mums, we're creating new life, we're creating new consciousness, we're recreating ourselves when we become mums. And I was thinking, oh, okay, I'll leave that there for a minute. And then all these other messages started coming through, and then it was really clear that it wasn't just for women on their journey to motherhood. This was a book for anyone who's been born, anyone who's living on the planet now, who is wondering about divine masculine, divine feminine, divine child. Where are we heading? What's happening with the energy? She has an amazing message about what's going on, or what has been going on for millennia, really. And this mother, really subduing the mother energy, the creation energy, because everything is birthed through the divine mother energy. And it was a message on IVF that really, I had a massive tantrum, like, what are you asking me to do? This is not the book I thought I was writing. I was writing about babies, to help women feel better, to help women just feel understanding of their experience. And now you're asking me to share all this big stuff. And I really had a tantrum. It's quite funny. I phoned Alwyn actually at like 12 o'clock at night, like, just to calm myself. It just felt so massive. And I wasn't at that level of massiveness yet with my confidence, and then I realized it was going to be 3 parts. It was the journey over 5 years was a really personal journey as well. And anything you're writing, if you're writing a book and everyone has their voice, it'd be so beautiful for women who think, I'd love to write my story. I'd love, women's voices, incredible. And just even if you're just writing for yourself, just the voice and the energy is having such a beautiful effect out onto the world. Sharing your voice, feeling your voice is worthy and valued. So writing the book was a massive journey, personal journey of, looking at judgment. What are people going to think? Am I making it up? So it took 5 years. And then she said it was I had in my head it was going to be a 2020 book, and it totally wasn't. There was something more that had to come through. I didn't realize at the time, but now I think, well, just trust. If it's not happening, there's something else happening. And there was just more information that was ready to come through. Then it was February, and then because of COVID, all the publishing dates were put back. And then it was May the 20th, which happens to be my birthday. And also the month of Mary, Mother Mary, who very much, the energy is very much in her energy, is very much around the book. So yeah, it's all
divine timing.
But it was
divine. Yeah. You had so just before we came on, you just opened a chapter, so that's how you use the book, isn't it? You can read it through, where you can just open and see what message it has for you, like cards. But what message did you were reading it earlier, just to read it again, because actually when we came on to do the interview, I just said to Debra before we even started, oh, where does this ever end? Because there's so much healing and you know, I think women are really coming out, and there's a real driver, isn't there, behind the energy at the moment, to come out and to share and to empower and to open up the space for women who are like, they're crying out for this space and sisterhood and support and all of that. So then this is the message actually when she had opened the book, and it's similar, I suppose, to where it is all going. So
it was so funny with the question, because you know, I was just waiting, being in my little space, and this is why we're each such a precious part of each other's puzzles, and it's together that we're going to get to where we need to be, where feels good for us. So first of all, I pulled a card, and it was about create, and this is from the Wendy Pride deck, beautiful wisdom of change cards, and it was create, and we're talking about,
Debra, actually?
We're talking about the womb and creation. So in order to move forward with the change we desire, we must not get caught in the noise. The antidote to fear, blame, and drama is creativity. We are made to create. And this is one of Rosa's key message. We are creators. We are creation. Everything we are doing is creating. We create in every moment. This card is inviting you to create something. Don't be afraid of how people may interpret or judge your creations. When we create, we release our stuckness, reinvent our lives, and tell new, exciting stories. Creativity has the power to rebuild our self-esteem and deliver hope. Create something of value and personal meaning, and watch how positive change and new opportunities flood into your reality. Just beautiful. And whether that's like a little doodle or a beautiful piece of art, or just playing with some music, or just whatever, you know, creating your business, creating new life, if that's where you're at, you know, all of these things. So then I flicked through the book, because Rosa's book, obviously you can read the full book, but it's also one of those books you can turn to, what do I need to hear today? Yeah. So you can ask Rosa, what do I need to hear today? And so when I was just waiting to come on, this is the page. It's on page 181 for anyone who does have the book, and it's like, what's the point of it all? What are the benefits, and where is it taking us? And it's so funny when you said, where does it all end? And I was like, oh, look. So I asked Rosa that, where is all this taking us? The benefits to the individual are clear, and the rewards of our own courage to look deeply within are truly infinite. The rewards, however, are not only for your benefit, but also for that of your children and future children. And then Rosa's message on this is, look, my darling, look at the sight of heaven here on earth. Can you see it? Can you feel it? Can you feel the wonder of what it will be like when all children feel free to roam and play, to live and to explore in this playground of life, to find their own way in their own path of freedom, and not at the behest of their parents, but at the behest of their own souls who wish to fly free and to love and to play and to explore as the geniuses they are, and not the geniuses that their parents and others see them as through their own limited eyes. Imagine a life without limits. Imagine a life without the need to do or say or to be like everyone else, in order to feel worthy, in order to feel loved, in order to feel that they belong, are a part of. Because of course, everyone is a part of, and yet separate from the source of all light from which they came.
Oh, that's beautiful. I'm really looking forward to getting the book. It'll be with me next week, I'd say. That's absolutely gorgeous. And yeah, I like, even just my guidance here today, all is to talk a bit more about even what you're saying there is the ancestral line, and how, say, with your experience, even coming to release, Rosa, just the impact the ancestral line and our conditioning has, all of that, to actually, that's how we make decisions, because we make it from the unconscious. So even decisions you make is usually from a limiting belief, or shame from the wounded mother from the generations back. So again, the message out to women who have gone through experiences like that, to let go of the beating up stage, that there was more than one person in it.
There's more than one person
long list
in it.
of ancestral energy that's actually in you. It's in your DNA, like it's all in you. And that's the driver behind. It's the body, it's all in the body, and that's the driver behind decisions we make every day based on our emotional connections to that. And we're not even aware. So again, when you said earlier, like, and this is what, you should do every moment of every day when you feel something come up, is, how am I feeling? Kind of connecting back in with the body. What am I feeling? How do I feel about this? Or, what message have you got for me today? Like that moves mountains, and you're in your present state then. You're not back in the past, and you're not freaking out about the future or whatever. You're just into the heart and back to present moment, and that's where the change comes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the wound of the mother, because I thought it was the wound of the mother, the pain we experience in various different ways as women. But the wound of the mother is that, women's or mums is, I sacrifice everything for my children. We've heard that. And it's not. It's your children are sacrificing yourselves for your patterns and programs. And that again sounds like a blame thing. It's totally not, because this is going down the line. You sacrificed yourself for your mum's wounds, and she sacrificed herself, because children need to feel safe. And how do they feel safe? They're not free, because they need to fit in with what our sense of self is, and what's right and wrong. And they've got so much to teach us, and that's not, again, it's not the onus on women. This is not what I'm saying. It's not it's all, because it comes down to, it's all your fault.
But it's also, it's knowledge, isn't it?
Yeah, the suppression of, you can't be who you are, right from however many eons ago. You can't be who you are. This is who you must be. And it's this suppression. And so women have just been really deeply unhappy, and for millennia, because of the experiences they've had, because of the patriarchal stuff going on, and so we're moving out of that. So we are not holding those wounds anymore, so our children can be free, because they teach us before they arrive, when they're in the womb, and certainly when they're arrived. They know so much. That balance of power. We're seeing a lot of power stuff going on at the moment, but we need to look at our own families and where that power structure is.
That's where all the rebel stuff comes from. If you think back when, say, we were younger, all those years ago, we're still young, really, but the kind of rebel part that comes up, that doesn't want to follow the rules and regulations. And I see, even, so I often say to my mum, if I don't parent the same way as my mum did. Once I kind of first I would have naturally not wanted to parent the same way, and then the more aware and awake I became, I started parenting differently to what I was parenting before, which wasn't the same as my mother, and she didn't parent the same as hers. Now there was bits and pieces that I would have taken on board, but I used to say to, or I still say to her, and my mum, like, there's 11 of us, she's amazing. And when you look back at how the conditions that she raised 11 of us in, like, oh my God, you wouldn't even, so she's absolutely phenomenal. But I'd say to her, because then there would be limiting beliefs and, shame and all of that, in her generation. And I'd say, well, if I parented the same way as you did, then you wouldn't have done a very good job. So I kind of turned it, because that's what I feel. So, and I say to my kids, if you parent exactly the same way I did, then I haven't done a very good job, because it's about evolving into that, isn't it? And if
rather
you don't,
this is the right way.
Where I found a lot of women were coming to me and they were feeling like they were being disloyal or feeling guilty because they didn't parent or they didn't have the same beliefs as their mother did, because they were getting caught in the wound of their mothers and how they had to raise children, how they were in their relationships. And it wasn't just about motherhood. They brought it in with their own kids and they brought it into their own relationships. This is the way my parents' marriage was. This is the way my mother was. And it was like you felt you had to be loyal to be to your mother, because you know, there's an understanding of how difficult it was and how amazing those women are, you know. But to bring that forward and then use it in a way of keeping yourself small doesn't serve anybody.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that perspective, because that's so it, isn't it? And if you think, if you're not parenting because you didn't enjoy being parented in this way, so you're going to parent somewhere different, it's still the same energy, it's still the same line, so you're not changing anything. So the more you look at, okay, so why didn't I enjoy that, why you're healing those wounds, and it's like letting that side and that side drop, and then you're just parent from you. It's your and your children are guiding you in how what their needs are, how they wish to be parented. And some might like loads of cuddles and some might just prefer their own, you know. It's just they've chosen you for a reason.
Yeah. And then you
And it's
parent
because you know what
differently.
they
You parent each child differently. And there is a thing, well, you know, you'd often hear people saying, well, I don't know why this child is like this, and the other one could be just fantastic in their belief system, and the other child then could be a bit of a rebel or giving trouble. But they kind of say, well, you know, they had the same parents. And I say, well, they didn't have the same parents, because, you know, your experience were different when you were one child was in the womb. You could have been going through a hard time, anything could have happened. Soul level coming in differently as well. And so nobody has had the same parents at all. And obviously then it has to come down to the child, because you can't control the way somebody responds to information, because they have their own programming already from their soul life, from their conditioning, from their time in the womb. And just to go on to that, because I know you're big with fertility, you help a lot of women around fertility. And getting ready. So there's the process of getting ready before conception, which you were talking about there, about releasing all of this. And then what about in utero? When how does do you do work through there as well with women through pregnancy?
Yeah.
Because that's really important, isn't it, as well?
So, and I really, I believe, I feel that because we can communicate before they arrive, we can communicate in the womb, we can communicate when they're born. I mean, they're communicating all the time, just because it's not in words. And I really feel we're moving into a place where we are going to be being able to communicate with our babies, sort of, you know, just translating their energy, if you like, and, you know, understanding what they're saying. We do anyway, just giving ourselves time to do that and consciously doing it. But I always say, when you become a mum, it's like Pandora's box opens, and all the stuff from your childhood that you didn't even think it was important, just it like opens like a massive, like, oh my gosh.
Suddenly have a different respect for your mother, don't you? Once you have your own, you kind of go, oh, okay, I get it.
And you also, it's just all the triggers from your own childhood, because you now have your own child. You're being triggered constantly back into your childhood wounds, actually, back into your own birth experience. So the way we're birthed, I think if we want to change the way the world is done, we need to change how we can look at conception and change how we birth, because our life patterns, so many beliefs are made and created when we're in the womb. We're conscious beings from the moment of conception, from before, but in this lifetime in conception. And everything, you know, we pick up, we whatever's going on with our mums, we pick that up in the womb. Our own birth stories, and the amount of women who come to me with birth trauma, we always go back to their own birth, and it's such a similar pattern. So there's a real kind of karmic, or a pattern that needs to be looked at. So the more preparation that we can do before, the more we look at our own stuff before we become a mum, the easier it will be to become, you know, to be that empowered mum who sees her child in their own way, and the less trauma, of course, on that child, the more free they are to be them. So yeah, I do spirit baby communication, obviously before they arrive, but also in the womb, which is just gorgeous, because we have so many worries as well, women, and it's I really wish my passion is to like empower them, saying you can do this. This isn't just, you can do this. It's your baby, so you tune into your baby. What do they need? If it's colors, is it images, is it words? How are they communicating? Because they all communicate differently. Max was proper chatty, Samuel was images. So it's just, you know, getting used to their energy, what and really feeling that bond with them before they arrive is so precious. They're so familiar when they do arrive. It's
Yeah, and even just like when you're talking about when they're in the womb as well, is, you know, stress levels, because, you know, they're sharing the same bloodstream as well. So and energetically, so the umbilical cord energetically and also physically, but just as well to, you know, I know there's lots, women have so much going on in life, but I suppose the main thing is to be as relaxed with it as possible. And even when you're talking about the conception first, so even how you conceive can have a massive effect, you know, and conscious conceiving, they say, is amazing as well. So then you have the in utero, and then the birthing process. Like the birthing process is huge. There's just not enough out there for women, supportive, like, you know, even in the hospitals. I mean, so I said in a previous interview earlier, like my brother's wife had an experience, both of them did, in the car, but I mean, just the actual the facilities aren't there medically for women. And what I realized from that, when my brother's wife had her baby in the car, they just didn't get there in time, was that everybody was saying, they were congratulating my brother, and he did a great job and everything, and everybody else, but it was like she was kind of nearly kind of down about 3 or 4 down the line. It was all about baby, it was all about dad, it was all about the guard, the policeman that was there. And I was just thinking, hold on a minute, you know, it's taking the power away from the woman. The only one that births this baby is the woman. Everybody else is a supportive system, you know. And we often use terminology or wording, like words are really powerful, as you know. You just, even with the book, you're just reading there and you can feel that vibration of just amazing. But wording like what was it, I've lost my train of thought there now.
Terminology of birth.
Yeah, it was like it's, you know, like an assisted, I would say an assisted delivery, but they would often say in talking that the, you know, he delivered, you know, a doctor delivered the baby, the midwife delivered the baby, the doula delivered the baby, or that's more assisted really. But you rarely hear the woman delivered the baby. So all the talk was, it really woke me up, Debra, because I just thought, what is, I wouldn't mind, I was on a call that night that it happened, rebirthing. So it was kind of just, and they were only a couple of minutes up the road from me, and I didn't even realize. But I was on a rebirthing call, with in a session. But it's just about, yeah, to me, that the minute you say somebody else has delivered, the doctor, is that you're already giving your power away. And that affects, when I looked at it and I got the channel stuff in, it was like you're already impacting your child with that attitude, because you've already stepped out of your power. And then I started to kind of bring it into work. And I could see the woman coming straight into her power when that was mentioned. She just came really present in her body, just like that. So isn't it amazing how things are kind of really opening up now and becoming more aware? And then there was kind of a joke going around, oh, was she involved at all in this process? You know, that's kind of a joke locally, because, you know, she wasn't acknowledged as the main person within that experience. That's another thing, like it's her body. She's actually birthing. And if you go into that as well, they say baby should really, you know, the way hospitals are now, when you're on your back and that, you know, baby kind of births, the mother is this beautiful vessel and she opens up, baby should kind of birth itself.
Yeah, and
there's so much different.
There's so much there. And isn't it really shocking, really telling, how diminished women have been, but how diminished the whole process of birth, because conception isn't just a physical act. It's there's a lot going on before that happens. There's a lot of, and it all comes back down to choice, because the baby, also remembering the baby has choice in what it and in what we choose to the patterns and stuff that we choose to pick up along the way, and also how we choose to be birthed. So we are in this co-creation with our baby. It's not all down, it's you're in a dance with your baby at all stages, no matter what is happening. You are in that process with your baby, in this beautiful dance with them. But it's helping women to remember, you are the only, you can invite in new consciousness, hold that in your body, nurture it, nourish this being, and birth this being into the world. And that has been forgotten. The preciousness of that and the power of that has been totally diminished. Like, oh, it's just something that happens, it's a physical, and therefore the medical need to take over, as if there's a thing. But it's so yeah, it's really telling how your sister-in-law wasn't, as if she wasn't there. I mean, but it's really telling, isn't it, how we see women, how we see birth. And this is what's changing.
I don't think people actually people get so used to it's so habitual now, even language, that when people they've said it all the time, so it's not something. When I kind of brought it up and said, well, hold on a minute, and then everyone goes, oh yeah, oh God, I never thought of it like that. So it's like people just get so used to repetitive, and they don't get in. So then the light bulb goes off in the subconscious, and they say, hold on a minute now.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me, and it starts the trigger kind of effect of the ripple effect of, in yourself, of thinking, oh right, it just opens up the awareness. But I think this is the way it changes very much so then in the physical, because with the energetics, we also have to, it's like the divine masculine, because the structures have to change, don't they, on the outside? So it's the dance of both of those as well, the feminine and the masculine, but the structures have to change outside, which means then we have to actually physically do things different with our own kids. And we have to physically get out there and say, no, this needs to change. It's not enough support for women, or we have to stand and say, oh no, that's, that's taking, think about what you just said there. Is that taking power away from, from the birthing process for the woman? Of course, everyone else is involved and that, but again, the mother is the vessel, and she's a vessel for a reason, and even with babies, sons, daughters, whatever, it's very important that that's acknowledged, to empower the child to go forward. That's kind of the information I've been getting a lot of recently.
Yeah, definitely. And even the word delivered, like delivered into what? No, they've arrived. Like they've arrived. I don't know. It's like the language, with the language of failure to progress, or it's so. And at 36, I had Samuel when I was 42, but at 36, I was called a geriatric mother. And the whole language around pregnancy and birth is, age. I have 3 clients in their 50s who have their babies. It's like really those beliefs, and again, it's around women's empowerment and choice and control over their bodies, and how they choose to see themselves, and what they wish for. But yeah, being delivered into what, like, that. But it's the whole thing about choice. And one of the most amazing journeys I went on, I was literally taking what looked like a massive kind of vulva, and I was shown the egg and the sperm, and the soul choosing, like, so many energetic codes in the egg, so many energetic codes in the sperm, and the baby's the soul is picking and choosing that code, that experience, that physicality, that energy. So we have choice from before we arrive. We choose. So that's really empowering to remember that we had choice from the very outset. Before we even arrived, I had choice. I chose these things. So how can that empower me to make choices that are for me now, and not choices because I've been delivered into this system? And then another thing that came through about the system was a lot of midwives in the system, and this message came through for a midwife who was like, the system, the system, the system. And what came through from source around the system was, the system won't be there when we don't need the system. The system is showing us where we are disempowered. The system is showing us where our wounds are. So all these experiences that we have because of the system, particularly now with, you know, recording this within the COVID, and no support for women, you know, partners, and the partners not bonding with their I mean, it's shocking. It's beyond shocking. Really going back to the, you know, to the dark ages, I would say, to not have that support for mum and baby. But to this, to work with, like, why is the system, what's it showing me? It's showing me where I have this wound. It's showing me that I'm giving away my power, or they're, you know, that's what they're doing. They're taking that power from me, my choice. And until we get to that stage where we don't need that system to show us, because we don't need it, because it's not showing us anything anymore, because it's all, you know, does that make any sense?
It 100%,
to not like slam the system's just showing us where things aren't right within us, where we're not in alignment. And that's not pleasant or great by any stretch, because it has some huge horrible effects. But self-responsibility seems to be the
and I think women are starting to find their voice, and even with the birthing process, then going through, we go down into the actual birthing process, so the yoni awakening as well, as you know, do that work. So just actually the birthing process itself, all of those negative beliefs and shame and everything women have around their bodies, their yonis, and all of that as well. And that can impact the birthing of the child as well, because the child has to go through that canal. I remember we were talking about this, I don't know, it was last year or something as well, but just, you know, if you talk about the crown chakra as well, birthing through that process, and actually the beliefs and the information that the child has coming out then as well. So it's really important for women to acknowledge their bodies, their fullness of their bodies as women. So, you know, we were talking like, so breast, wombs and yonis, these are all nurturing, life-giving force, you know, and actually so many women have so many issues, or, you know, around their physical bodies, around because of shaming from the past and patriarchal stuff and that, but they have lots of negative things around breasts, around their womb space, so many hysterectomies and things like that. And then to acknowledge as well that even if these aren't physically there, you still have your blueprint. So you still have an energetic womb. You haven't lost your womb in that way. So, you know, for women, because some women feel, oh, this work can't be for me now if I don't have, you know, because I physically have a hysterectomy, womb removed, or you know, breasts removed and stuff like that. It is still there. The energetics are still there as well. And we're all energy at the end of the day. That's all we are. And, you know, so that's how it all starts. But again, just self-love, forgiveness, awareness, all of these, and nurturing, and actually been the incredible bodies we've been given, you know, in order to bring through all of these wonderful souls and us from before. So I think just that's the empowerment, and women actually starting to love their bodies as is as well, and just realize how powerful they are as women.
I'm just huge, so much power, so much you can ever imagine. And one of the images that I was shown when I was taken up to the spirit baby realm is that we're all kissed on the head by God, by source, by love, unconditional love, to remind us we are all kissed as we dive in. It's like this little kiss on the head, that remembrance. So our crown chakras are open, and certainly the babies being born, they're incredible beings. But if we're coming down through all this density, being birthed through the density, you know, it's you're picking up everything, going through those lower chakras and physically through what's ever being held in the body. But also always remember your baby has a choice in what they're picking up as well, because we could also use that as like, oh God, I did that, and make ourselves even more guilty, or give ourselves a good kicking. No blame, no guilt. Your baby also has a choice in what they are picking up. But how we're going to change the world is if we're aware of what we're holding in our bodies, and that gives our children much more you know, free to keep that kiss on the crown, like really connected, to keep, you know, to enable that connection, not laid under all the density that, you know, that we were birthed into, or
And
our
that's it.
life
Like
stories were birthed into, all of that.
It's a co-creation. So when women are aware that these things impact them, as mothers as well, but there's no blame, because that's a time waster.
Yeah, but we're so good
because
at it.
you can't and I remember when I started my thing, I thought, oh my god, whatever, but you can't, then learning that actually I can't do anything about the way my child picks up information. That's their journey, but I can be the light and actually start to heal my wounds, so that they're not actually coming or trying to please me from what I expect from them, from my limiting beliefs. So I went on that journey of empowering myself, which would have a ripple on just allowing my children to just expand and not have to deal with my baggage, as well as whatever they're working through as well on their soul journey, you know.
And that's it. It's really, you know, everything starts with you, the individual, because you're so powerful, because you're so amazing. You can do it. You know, this is what you're capable of. This is your magic. Like, you have that. You know, so really recognizing that in yourself by moving through all those darker, shadowy type, you know, experiences and beliefs that we have about ourselves.
Okay, do
Yeah,
you
stunning.
just conscious of time there, so the link for the book will be in the comments above, and then you also have Divine Mother Wisdom Circle, a membership, so we'll have the link for that as well. So you can, if anybody wants to work with Debra further, then you can contact her, and the information will be there. Is there anything you want to finish off with, Debra?
Oh, just gorgeous. Thank you so much, Siobhan. I love your insight. I love that, how you bring things to life. Less like you just see, you know, with your sister-in-law, like, why is no one looking at the woman? But it's that we don't see, because it's like you know, a fog, and that's okay. Then the fog clears, and then things change. But I think it's for women is to remember you had choice from the very outset. You still have choice. And everything you're thinking about yourself is totally the opposite of who you truly are. You are so incredibly powerful, precious. Your voice, your experiences, who you are is very much needed in the world. And as I said to you, we are all these beautiful pieces of each other's puzzle. So let's help each other come together and remember who we are, and really, yeah, bring some joy.
Love that, and thanks so much for joining me. And again, if anybody wants to work with Debra further, all the information's there. She's absolutely amazing. Love chatting with you, and must have some more chats, because they just,
I know.
you know, it was so busy. But it was amazing, and I know that just chatting with you today is going to help a lot of women who watch this to just open up to that awareness and see themselves in a different light as well, and the process. And again, Rosa's Choice, can't wait to get it. And it's available there as well on the link. So do go out and buy it. I'm sure you won't be disappointed. So I think you're absolutely amazing. So thanks a million for joining me. And
We all
yes,
are.
yeah. So we'll see you again in 2 weeks' time. Bye for now.